Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Spinistry Chat. It's been a while since we've gotten together, so really excited about this one. I think we have some new information that y'all are going to really get a kick out of. I am your host of Adventures, Kevin Lee, with the Spinistry, and we're going to go over a bunch of things in this particular chat. Usually, I do try to keep them as brief as possible. In this one, I'm going to say the same thing. We're going to try to keep it as brief as possible, but I just don't know how brief that can be. We're covering multiple birds with just one stone this time, but they're all kind of in the same flock and intertwined together. So it may get a little complex. Basically, we're going over some survey results on the front end about supported adventures. And we sent that survey out towards the end of November, got very good response to it. We're going to go over those results and some of the individual responses on top of that, which is going to take us into some of the things that are going to be coming in 2021 from the Spinistry directly as a result of the survey findings. Ideas we've been playing with for some time. And thanks to your feedback, we think we've consolidated some of these pieces. So we're going to go over the survey results, how it goes into our general plans for 2021. And then we're going to go over some specific events, trips, whatever you want to, adventures, whatever you want to call them, that are tied into those plans, and how those will be facilitated as well. Let's start with just the survey itself. It was a single question survey, so the response rate was tremendous on it. Basically, we had 385 responses to this question. What is your price point to participate in supported multi-day adventures, 3 to 4 days? Support would include camping arrangements, pre-planned routes with GPS navigation, shuttling your gear and food, and satellite tracking SOS capability included. I'll go in more depth on what some of those features mean, what that might look like later on in the process. I'm sure folks will have questions about those. Also, what I'm going to do, if you're watching the YouTube video version of this, once I edit everything together, I'm also going to include some dash cam footage of our trip down to the Rio Grande this past weekend, just to give you something to look at while you listen to me talking about the details of this, because probably just looking at static images of computer screen isn't very enjoyable itself. And some of the stuff we came across on this past trip, which hint, you guys might be able to see yourselves. It's some pretty cool stuff. So again, along those lines, what's your price point for that type of supported adventure? We'll go down to the nitty gritty here. People that thought something like that might be worth $500 or more, we had 26 of the 385, or 6.75%, that thought that was a $500 or more value. The largest group, 40%, is 154 respondents of the 385 thought it's, somewhere in the $250 to $500 range. I mean, obviously that's a fairly broad range, but as you'll see as we get deeper into this, some trips I can also see will have more value to them than others. So there might be a sliding scale along those lines. And sometimes if it's a budget that you want to stick to, maybe a particular trip is better suited towards your budget, sort of thing. I get that. 23.64%, or 91 respondents, said value between $100 and $250. And this is a very good response rate. We like this. We know we can't be everything for everyone. And we also don't want to, if we're doing certain things that don't fit some people, we don't want to inundate those people with things they're not interested in. And right at 25%, 97 respondents said they're just not interested in those types of adventures. And we get it. Maybe they already do those things completely on their own. They don't need any support. Maybe they have no interest at all in backcountry point-to-point adventures or anything like that. You know, the closest they come to camping is the Hampton Inn or whatever. And then others, less than 5%. And I'll be honest with you, this kind of uh, this kind of caught me off guard. I expected a higher percentage of the respondents to say that they thought it should be free, or it wasn't worth paying for at all, or whatever, or they had other specific needs that they were wanting. But the reality is those basic breakdowns covered over 95% of the respondents. And we'll break the numbers down a little bit more. And I'm just going to touch on this now. But between the highest dollar tiers, the $250 and up, basically, break out the calculator here. That's 154 plus 26. That's 180 of the 385 respondents. So we'll divide that 180 by 385. 180 divided by 385 equals almost 48%. So 48% of the people that were interested in paying for this sort of adventure think the value is likely to be $250 or more. We'll touch on that later on in the process. Just wanted to plant that seed now and show you how some of these pieces come together down the road. What we're going to do now is some of those others, we wanted specific feedback about how this price breakdown or this structure or what we outlined here doesn't necessarily fit into what they have in mind of adventures they would like to do. And what I'm going to do now is kind of go over each of those responses, and maybe it was misunderstanding of the question from some folks, or just want to clarify for those people or other people that may have similar issues or questions. And then what we'll do is, after I address each of those individual comments, we'll come back to the general question and give a little bit more specificity to what the support might look like. And that might tie into some of those responses. First one is any amount that would be easy to understand the rationale for. So this person wasn't able to quantify an exact amount. If they can understand what justifies the cost, it could be $1, it could be $1,000, it could be $10,000. I get that. So hopefully we'll paint a little bit better picture. It's really going to come down to on a per event basis, though, to be perfectly honest with you. Some events are realistically just going to entail a lot more costs on our end if we have to rent very expensive facilities, for example, or if we have to bring in a lot of amenities, different things, we may have tremendous cost associated with, and, that's going to reflect in the price of that particular adventure or event. I would need to know some more details. If it was a mountain bike style event in a cool place, then I would be interested. Yes, obviously more detail is key to all this. Let's kind of make it a very general statement that we're going to have multiple events, and definitely some are going to be mountain bike oriented, some will be gravel oriented, some will be either or, and there's going to be a lot of flexibility there. Number 3, since most land in Texas is privately owned, it would help if a rider would have warm showers host or cooperating rancher to put your tent on a loop course. We've done that in the past, and we expect to do more of that, and some of our adventures may be along those lines. More interested in less support, lower price point in the $100 to $200 range. Don't need my gear or food shuttled, but would be nice to have someone with a car and bike rack that could get me back to my car if I had a major mechanical issue. Okay, this one, let's definitely talk on this. This covers a couple of really big issues related to our adventures. The first 3/4 of this I agree with 1,000%, and we're definitely going to be able to support those sorts of adventures. If we may be able to I know we will be offering this. We'll have some of these adventures that are the in the supported nature for folks that want their gear shuttled and all the camping arrangements or overnight arrangements made and things like that. Uh, but there will be another alternative for folks that they just want to follow the route or go to the general place at the same time as folks, maybe cross paths or have a common socializing area if it's appropriate and things like that. So the different levels of support, we expect that to be uh, a regular piece of the equation for most of these events. Some might be fully supported only, some might be self-supported only, but we expect the majority of the time both options should be available. Now, here's the kicker on this one. This particular respondent wanted to have a car and a bike rack that could get me back to my car if I have a major mechanical issue. But they also have a price point that's $100 to $200 range. I'll be perfectly frank, those two pieces really don't go together. And I'm not saying this isn't something we would like to do. The reality of having that person that's able to be readily available to shuttle people, particularly if it's a multi-100-mile route or something like that, to have somebody at your beck and call to come get you if you need help, that's probably not a realistic option in conjunction with a lower price point. That's realistically something that if you're spending, if you're having a white gloves type event, $1,000 a person or something along those lines, then the resources are available to have a floating SAG vehicle that can cover large amounts of ground. If you're doing it on a lower price point, that basically means you're having smaller support staff doing more functions. And if you have one or two support people and then one of those two support people has to take 12 hours out of their day to go get somebody that's stranded and take them back to their vehicle and then get back to support the rest of the riders, that's probably not viable because the main use of the support people will be to support the most people, not the individual. So I'm not saying it's something we will never provide. I'm just kind of painting the picture of looking at it from the logistical aspect of things. That's probably not a realistic combination of expectations, low price point and individual support. Would be interested if basic motel lodging were offered. That's definitely something that may be available as well. Again, that's going to tie into one of those things, well, we might be able to rent a group campsite for a weekend for $300 or something like that. If we put everybody in motel rooms or hotel rooms, then we're looking at $50 to $200 a room, depending, realistically, there aren't very many $50 rooms that are better than a group campsite, to be honest with you. So again, that's one of the things you have to balance the costs involved. It doesn't mean motel and hotel lodging will never be available. And there's also the possibilities along the way of doing some private resorts or houses or something like that. Cabins. We've done those sorts of things in the past as well. So we're not what we call our AC adventures or air conditioned adventures. We expect that to be some of the options along the way. $200 to $300. Okay, that's in that $250 range. Multi-day adventure sounds wonderful. I'm super interested, but the budget does not allow for that luxury. Understand that completely. We can't be all things to all people. $100 to $150. Well, let's go back to the checklist of things. Support would include camping arrangements, pre-planned routes where we're providing GPS navigation for people that don't have GPS devices, or obviously tracking files for people that do have them, shuttling your gear and food, and as well as satellite tracking SOS capability included as well. Uh, it, I don't think you'll ever find that anywhere for $100 to $150, but I fully support anyone that is able to find that level of support for that price point. $100 or less, interested in pre-planned routes with camp arrangements already arranged. Kind of like the previous one, we have to cover our costs. It's that simple. I'm not really interested in this point, but would be depending on the provided accommodations. I would certainly be up for paying up to $500 to do a yearly trip. Okay. And hopefully one of the options we have available makes sense for this person or others that have the same sentiment. I don't have a price point right now. One, because of the economy, and two, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm not able to comprehend something of such nature at this point in it. That's an excellent point, but quite frankly, it's also one of the primary reasons we're looking at doing these sorts of adventures. The idea is smaller groups, socially distance appropriate, out in the middle of nowhere, no contact, and just go out and have a good time, but still having that safety net of other people around, arrangements being made, people know where you are, they're able to track you, you're able to send an SOS if needed, that sort of thing. Now, that said, we're not trying to twist arms by any stretch of the imagination. If you're not comfortable interacting with other people at all during these virus times, I fully support that decision. We're not here telling people how they should consider their own safety. We're providing options that we feel meet specific safety requirements, and if it falls under other people's comfort levels, we're happy to put those pieces together. But we don't want to drag people into stuff they're not comfortable doing at this time. Fingers crossed, it's something we don't have to worry about for much longer. But quite frankly, the safety aspect is top of the list of why we're doing these smaller events with less people involved. Providing shuttle and support. Okay, I think that's what we're talking about. So I would need a little bit of elaboration what that point is. I'm mainly interested in routes and want to carry my own stuff. We already have that covered. Just with your basic Club Spinistry membership, we literally have hundreds, if not at this point thousands of routes. And if you're a Club Spinistry member and you need a custom route put together, that's included with your Club Spinistry membership. $150 to $300. I think we're kind of in that splitting hairs range. That still kind of falls in that $250 range. I'm putting other because I feel it's quite location dependent. I'd go 500 plus for a cool place, especially something somewhere that might be difficult, logistically unsupported, and probably the second tier 250 to 500 for something else. If it's still 3 to 4 days. Below that, I don't know what I'd expect much when we're talking about several days. Understood. A lot of this is going to be very event specific and destination specific and things like that. And later on in this conversation, we'll give an idea of some of the trips that we have in mind and what those are going to look like, with the understanding that this is by no means a complete list for 2021 at this point, but we have some pieces in place to definitely get the ball rolling on that, and we'll be adding to that. $100, but not until post-pandemic. Understood the post-pandemic aspect completely. Again, we're back to the $100. Even if there's not a virus to be had, I don't think it's a realistic expectation for anyone to offer that type of support for a remote multi-day event at that sort of price point. So that transitions back into, so let's kind of talk about what the support may look like or what we know it will look like. But this is, this is not in stone at this time. This is an evolving process for us. As we do each trip, we're going to find more pieces that are needed, or maybe things that we're doing that aren't needed, and we'll adjust and adapt to what the participants most need along those lines. But let's start with the support would include camping arrangements. So typically what that would mean is you just sign up for the ride, sign up for the event, and you know that it's going to be on, that Friday afternoon through that Monday morning. And if it's camping, if it's lodging or whatever else, we'll outline it on each trip what that entails, and you'll know on the supported rides, it, you know, that you have a place to stay essentially, and what that place encompasses. Is it a remote primitive campground without any facilities of any kind? Maybe it is, but that'll be specified, and we'll let you know. Well, we'll be trucking in water for you. We'll provide you a trowel so you can dig your own cat hole, or we'll provide porta johns. We'll explain all of that, and obviously it's going to be specific to each trip and each adventure. But the camping arrangements, we would take care of all of that. You just know what days you need to be there for that. Pre-planned routes with GPS navigation. That means we've already scouted and verified the routes, and let people, if there's issues that need to be addressed, or give people an idea of what sort of difficulty level we're dealing with. We'll already be up to speed on that. And we'll provide you with the GPS files to use with your own navigation device, or if you don't have a navigation device, you'll be able to use the Ride with GPS app. Even if you're in the middle of nowhere with no cell service, you're still able to utilize that. And it's possible that we'll even have backup phones of our own with the routes preloaded, or navigation devices. So all I'm trying to say is, if you don't have dedicated GPS navigation, we'll give you that capability for the weekend, because it's not likely that most of these courses will be marked. We won't be using Spinistry arrows. I'm not going to say never. Pieces could come together where we're combining one of these with another event, a regular event. Maybe there will be Spinistry arrows. My expectations is it would always be GPS navigation. The support would also include shuttling your gear and food. Now, if you want to carry all of your gear and food on your bike and do a bike packing adventure, you're more than welcome to. If you would rather have somebody carry it for you and take down the weight, and then you just focus on pedaling from point to point, we will shuttle the gear from campsite to campsite and back to your parking area, or whatever else. Or you can change your mind along the way. Maybe on Saturday you want to carry the gear, but on Sunday you want us to carry it for you. And uh, and that would be your food as well. Realistically, some of these adventures are going to be pretty remote. There may not be the opportunity to go by convenience stores or restaurants or anything like that. So if you're going off for 3 days and there's no stores along the way, that's a lot of food to carry. Well, we'll carry it for you. And we're always going to encourage everyone to provide their own food, and we'll give some guidelines for that. It's not realistic for us to say that we're going to be feeding everyone on these outings ourselves. There may be times where we're providing prepackaged foods and things like that. And there may be times where we're able to do open air cooking. We're going to do things like that whenever it's possible. Just go with the expectation, though, that you'll be providing your own food that we'll carry on your behalf. There's a couple reasons for that. One, if you have any dietary preferences or special diet needs, the last thing you want to be is out in the middle of nowhere, beholden to someone else to provide the exact food that you need if you have special requirements. In turn, even if we're cooking, you may not like my cooking. It's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. All right. So, shuttling your gear and food and water, particularly when you're in the middle of nowhere, that can take up a lot of space, and that can be almost impossible for some of these trips if you don't have support along the way. And then on top of that, satellite tracking with SOS capabilities included. What that means is we're going to provide you a spot tracking device, satellite tracker with SOS capability on these supported rides and events. You don't have to go out and invest in the hardware and the annual satellite tracking plan, which can literally be many hundreds of dollars a year for that. In turn, again, these are going to be smaller group rides. So that's going to be one of our restrictions on group size. There's other factors as well. It's not realistic for one person in a pickup truck to support 50 people. That's not a realistic expectation. But it's also not realistic for us to invest in 50 spot navigation devices and the annual plans for or spot trackers and the annual plans for those, um, when maybe we only have 6 to 12 people on a trip, sort of thing. So lots of pieces that combine here that make a lot of sense, we think. And that's kind of a broader overview of what we mean by support. But that's not the complete picture. That's kind of where we're starting from presently. There may be other pieces I'm sure there'll be other pieces that come into play on that. One of the things that we're likely to do, but I can't guarantee it at this point, but we do have the capability, if you don't have any camping gear, we can probably provide for some people almost as much of the camping gear as they would need to get through the weekend. Right now, I would say you probably need to provide your own sleeping bag, but we probably have everything else that could get you through. So if you're interested in doing these multi-day adventures, but you don't have camping gear, it's very likely that we would be able to include that. Would that be an extra cost? Don't know right now. Maybe it's something we can just make part of the trip for all and make it optional. If you need it, it's there. If you don't need it, no worries. Haven't gotten to that point. I'm going to let you guys tell me what the best solution along those lines might be. The other aspect is, toilet facilities. What does that look like? Particularly in backcountry areas, it may not be realistic to come across, definitely it's not likely to come across a real restroom. Lots of times it's not likely to come across a vault toilet or an outhouse. We provide portable restrooms for everyone, not porta-johns, the luggable loos or something like that. Or maybe we just provide you a little trowel and a YouTube video on how to dig a cat hole and properly dispose of your TP if you're not familiar with that. Again, you guys are going to give us the feedback if we're in that sort of environment, what your needs may or may not be and how we can help assist with that. More support pieces will come into play as we get more feedback from participants or people that might be interested in participating. And there might be things we're bringing to the mix that just absolutely have no value. Again, the GPS navigation via Ride with GPS. Maybe everyone that's interested in this type of trip already has a GPS navigation device, so there's no actual value to that aspect of it. So maybe we don't even talk about it. We just, hey, the routes are included, load them to your device. Might be as simple as that. So where we're going to go now is talk about, big picture wise, some of the events, some of the trips that we have in mind along along this line. But this isn't going to be all of them by any stretch of the imagination, and we'll elaborate on that next. So where we're going to go at the moment to touch on that is our current 2021 Facebook calendar. As we sit today, middle of December 2020, the virus is still a big deal. We're not presently planning any of our big events. We're kind of waiting to see how virus stuff sorts out in the coming weeks and months. We have learned how to be fairly agile, and if the timing allows, we have 3 or 4 weeks in advance. We can put together some smaller to mid-sized events when it looks like it might still be viable from a virus perspective. We're not making a political statement here. We're not judging. If people want to do large events on their own, they're welcome to. We're not telling you what to do. If other promoters want to host large events, they're perfectly welcome to. We're just not at this time comfortable putting on larger events or planning for the larger events. And this is as much of it as anything. I don't want to put out a big event of ours and have people sign up for it and pay their money and start making travel arrangements and plans around it, and then saying it's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, or whatever. After what we've all been through from an events perspective in 2020, I don't want to create false hopes and then have to turn it off and pull the plug and keep kicking the can down the road for, well, we'll try again in 2 weeks, 2 months, I don't know. We're not going to start planning those bigger events until it makes more sense to do that on a concrete basis. We understand completely that people are opening registration for other events along those lines, and I I I hope everything works out for everybody and those events go off as planned and everybody goes there and has a fantastic time. That's what we want. We just personally don't want to be in a position to have to pull the plug on ours down the road. So until we're confident that the bigger events are going off, we're not going to start planning for them. So we're going to focus on the smaller stuff and maybe the medium-sized stuff with a shorter turnaround. If it looks like it makes sense 3 or 4 weeks from now to try to put one of our traditional events together, we will. Along those lines, we're January 9th, we'll be doing our Shelby Winter Wonderland out of Harmony Hall. We're going to do that as a wave start event like we've done for the past couple of gravel grinders. And on December 26th, we have a local Club Spinistry only, very informal holiday get-together ride, an urban adventure starting from Mad Duck. And, the Kicking 2020 and the Jingle Bells Urban Adventure Ride. It's really just it's an informal route for people to ride on their own schedule. There's no chip chiming. There's no official start time or anything like that. We'll have hey, we'll be here at the parking lot at this time to send anyone off that's there then. But if other people want to start later in the day, they're welcome to. The Shelby Winter Wonderland, we'll be opening registration up for that this coming weekend. Realistically, that registration may be open by the time this is edited and posted. And that will be wave starts. So that'll be a traditional gravel grinder, but in our wave format. Then on January 29th goes into our first supported adventure that we've already made arrangements for. We have made the camping arrangements for this January 29th through February 1st trip at Big Bend National Park. We haven't published all the details. We haven't opened sign up for it just yet. Realistically, that sign up will probably be open by the time this video is posted. And more details about the specifics of that trip. But I just want to touch on, this supported theory idea that we're kicking around, well, we're going to implement it starting January. And the general idea is that each month we'll be offering one of these supported trips as an option for people that are interested in those. I doubt we'll be doing more than one a month. They do take up a lot of time and a lot of resources, but they are pretty dang cool. So we're looking forward to doing them, but they're going to be different each time. It's not like we're going to go to Big Bend National Park and do the exact same thing month after month after month. And we'll touch on that in a little bit more detail here momentarily. So we have the camping already arranged. We have the routes finalized. We're putting all the support pieces together that we can wrap our heads around at the moment that would be needed for that particular weekend. So realistically, if we've been talking all this time and we've shown you some things you're interested in, realistically, if this fits into your schedule, you can probably just go to this event and go ahead and go through the motions to sign up for it now. So that's trip one. Like I said, we presently have in mind to do one of these trips each month. So that's our January trip. Right now, we don't have a February trip specifically nailed down, but we are looking at a couple different options for that. We have a March trip already nailed down, camping arrangements made for that. That's going to utilize our Austin to Dallas adventure route, which is primarily dirt roads. The current plan is that we'll offer this as both an Austin to Dallas option and a Dallas to Austin option, both on the same weekend. This one, we definitely plan to offer fully self-supported options as well as the Spinistry supported options. We'll go into more detail on that in the coming weeks, not too far down the road. But if people have their own support team, support facilities, and we would like to offer this as a stage race to people that are interested in that, there's no need for them to do the Spinistry support option. But if they would be interested in doing a stage race but don't have a support team, or even if they don't want to do it in a race format, but they just want to do the overnights with us, we'll be able to do the support, provide the support for those participants that want that. So that's the March option. We have a January option. We have a March option nailed down. We also have an April option that we have in mind at the moment. What we're tossing up is what we have in mind for February and April. One could go either way. What we have in mind for February now might go in April. The one we have in mind for April now might go in February. One of those will be back in the Rio Grande Valley area, not Big Bend National Park, but in that same general area. And the other option would be tied to our friends at 4R Ranch Vineyards and Winery and doing a similar adventure to the LBJ grasslands like we've done from there in the past. And that one would be more along the lines of a hybrid of, the warm showers one that one person requested, where, we're utilizing private land and public land both. It's kind of a hybrid event. So those are the ones we presently have planned out through April. And as these pieces come together, we're going to flesh out the rest of the year. One of the things that we do have on the calendar right now as far as our traditional events, and it's a placeholder in the calendar right now. We have high confidence that this one will happen, but we're doing the placeholder because of our Hell of the North Texas, which is held in conjunction with Tour de Paris weekend. Tour de Paris has committed at this point to July 17th for Tour de Paris, which means that July 18th we'll be doing our Hell of the North Texas on the same weekend. And right now that's just a placeholder. But another reason that comes into play at the moment is realistically, after that weekend, we will most likely be heading to Colorado and start doing adventures through the end of the summer and probably into September. It's possible we may do something in June as well. There's a high likelihood I'll go to Colorado and potentially California and stuff for our going to California route in June. That might just be our self exploration stuff, our own fact finding. I don't know that we'll be able to tie a specific event in there. We're gonna have to do something in June, but it's more than likely to be a final Texas one or something on the way to Colorado. We've got some cool stuff in the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma Panhandle, eastern New Mexico and Colorado area that we would like to do something with at some point. That might be a good time to do that as well. And then the other piece that we want to make sure everyone's aware of, assuming virus goes in the direction that we hope it's going, have our fingers crossed, and by the time October gets here, we'll be able to go do a full-blown RAT 1000 again. We expect to offer a supported option with the RAT 1000 as well. So I can hear it now. Everyone's going, okay, well, that's all fine and good, Kevin. But you really didn't fill in the details. How much is that Big Bend trip going to cost me? How much is supported RAT 1000 going to cost? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All perfectly fair questions, and all questions that, for the most part, we can't really answer just yet until we nail down the details for each event. Because again, some events are going to have different costs associated with them versus others. That said, we're going to talk about 3 of the events right now that we're very confident in what the cost would be involved on those. And the idea will be to make as many as possible similar to this or as close to this price point as possible. And the current plan, quite frankly, is we're going to give folks what we think is a really good package option. That's not going to just be for these adventure trips. It's also going to be for your regular single day gravel grinders, Texas Chainring Massacre, Red River Riot, left out of Land Run, or I'm sorry, missed out on Mid South, the Hill Country Hundy, Lockhart Breaker. Those will all be included in this as well for the people that kind of help us out, but we think we're going to actually help you guys out a lot more if any of these sorts of trips interest you. And the Spinistry Golden Ticket, we've had it available in the past, and people have taken advantage of it. There's no doubt about that, but we think we're taking that up to the next level. So what the Spinistry Golden Ticket has been in the past, essentially $500 plus the administrative fees, the transaction fees, for the credit card processing and things like that, would get you all the Spinistry events for a year. And for people that do all of our events, that's a pretty darn good deal. And obviously all the Club Spinistry member benefits and things like that. We've adjusted the Club Spinistry Golden Ticket to a little bit different price point now, but it includes those transaction fees. So it's $600, no additional transaction fees. But what that's going to give you free Spinistry events for 12 months from when you sign up or when you designate that your golden ticket starts. And it's also going to give you first access to these Spinistry supported events that we offer. Most of the time when it's possible, there's not going to be an additional charge for those either. For example, that Big Bend trip I was telling you about, our Big Bend National Park trip, the way we have that set up right now, we've got the pieces for people to have their spot tracker. We already have the camping arrangements made and things like that. We have those pieces put together. So if you have the Spinistry Golden Ticket, when we open up the sign up for that, you're going to have the first opportunity to take one of the limited spots that we're going to have. And that's something we're still trying to find. Somewhere, there's going to be most likely somewhere between 6 and 12 people for that right now. Probably closer to the 6. When we go over the details of that event, we'll talk about that more. But the Spinistry goes to Big Bend National Park. That's included at no extra charge if you have that Spinistry Golden Ticket and you're one of the first 6 or 12 people that sign up for that. In turn, the Austin to Dallas stage event weekend, we already have the pieces in place for that as well. Now, this one's a little bit different. So we do have higher facilities, lodging costs involved with that. We actually have some overnight lodging that's available that has civilized facilities and a few real beds for some people. So there's a little bit higher cost. But what we're going to do in that case is say, okay, well, we can do 8 people for this facility, and it costs us this much for the weekend. We're going to divide that by 8. So let's say that works, let's say it works out to $50 a person. Okay. That's what the cost is for that weekend. We have additional higher than normal costs. So the supported option, instead of being included with your Spinistry Golden Ticket, it's probably going to be a nominal cost of like $50 for this particular event. The RAT 1000, that is already going to be included with your Spinistry Golden Ticket. Again, Golden Ticket members are going to have first crack at each one of these monthly trips that come up. So if you do the math on it, at $600 for an individual Golden Ticket for the year, that's not too much higher than the $500 high point price range that, $250 to $500 for a single multi-day event. We're giving you a year's worth of Spinistry stuff, included option to hit multiple multi-day events throughout the year for that same price point. And if this goes off like gangbusters and we get more people that sign up for Golden Tickets than we are able to fit into the events, well, then that just tells us we have to throw other events into the mix as well. And then maybe somewhere down the road, it gets to the point where we have to say people are limited to 3 of these multi-events a year. I don't think that's anything we're going to have to worry about right away. Particularly anyone that gets in on the front end of this, they're going to get a lot of bang for the buck. And what we're also going to offer along those lines is it's $600 for the year instead of the $500, but the $600 includes the transaction fees, which I think were worked out to about $20 or $25 the old way we were doing it. Here's what we're going to be doing through the end of the year, through the end of 2020. If you are a current Club Spinistry member, we'll apply your current membership annual fee for an individual, $75. We'll give you a coupon code you can use that takes the $600 down to $525 if you sign up by the end of the year, which is basically a wash from what it cost before for the Golden Ticket, but now we're offering these multi-day supported adventures as well. I think that's a pretty good deal. We're only going to offer that membership, current Club Spinistry member discount through the end of 2020. After that, it's just going to be $600 for anybody that signs up for the individual 12-month Golden Ticket. And it's 12 months from when you sign up. It's not like it's a membership only from January 1st to December 31st. When you sign up, it's 12 months from that date. We also have an option. This is meant for our sponsors and partners. There's a partner Golden Ticket that's $1,000 for 12 months. What that gets is the partner is obviously they get promotion from us with our events and things like that. Highly likely, if they wanted to be involved with one of these multi-day events, we might name it an Insurance for Texans trip to Big Bend National Park or something like that. And the partner is allowed a participant for each of these events themselves. And that one is actually transferable. If you have the individual golden ticket, you can't transfer your entry to a friend or something. It's only for your use. If you're a partner, if you're a sponsor, it is a transferable entry to any Spinistry event, but it would include these multi-day adventures as well. Now, the complimentary aspect may be different for the multi-day adventures. Partner golden tickets get complimentary entry to a traditional gravel grinder. If there's additional cost on our end for the multi-days, the partner would still have to pay that same cost as everyone else for that event, or the transfer person that they designate would have to. So that's a partner golden ticket option there. Here's a third option. We do have a 1-month golden ticket option that we're making available now. It's for $250. Realistically, the idea is for somebody that's wanting to do just one of those events, one of the multi-day events. They don't expect to go to multiple events throughout the year or anything like that. Maybe they're not even interested in our initial gravel grinders, but they can have a 1-month golden ticket for $250, and that'll cover them to get the entry fee for that one multi-day event. But as well, if they change their mind, hey, we have a gravel grinder that same month, they decide they want to do the gravel grinder as well, and then they can do that. And here's where it gets interesting. So, obviously, somebody maybe they want to do the Big Bend trip, and they thought that was all they wanted to do. After they do that, they go, you know what? I really had a good time. I think I'm going to do that Austin to Dallas trip as well. Another $250. They can do another month, and they can do that throughout the year. So, if needed, if just you don't have a budget of $500 or $600 right now, you can do $250 this month, $250 in April. And then if there's a third month that comes up, just give me a shout. Say, hey, Kevin, I've already done $500 for the year. I'm about to do my third month. Can we do the Club Spinistry or the Spinistry Golden Ticket option for the year? And then I'll give you a coupon code. You can sign up for your 1-month golden ticket, last golden ticket. And what I'll do is basically set you up with a membership that began with your first event at that point. And it'll still be the same net $600. Something to think about there. Now, please, if you have the financial wherewithal to go ahead and pay for the year, please make our administrative life easier and go ahead and do that. Don't use that as free financing if you don't need to. But along those lines, particularly the times of the virus, I do recognize that budgets are an issue as well. If you need to take advantage of that option to basically spread out payments over the year to make your budget more tolerable, I understand that completely. If you need that flexibility, you're more than welcome to use it. We just ask that you don't utilize that if it's not really a need of yours. Because if we're having to chase that around for everybody that's doing these events, and well, this month they weren't a member, that month they were, and I'm happy to do it for people that need that help. I know it's kind of complicated. I know it's kind of convoluted. Please just take this as a snapshot at the moment. Pieces will come together in the coming weeks and early into 2021. I'm sure those that join us at the campfires for some of these events, they're gonna throw a lot of questions our way and shine the light on some things that I didn't realize needed more illumination, things like that. Please feel free to add your comments here, ask your questions, give your feedback. If something I threw out there is just totally ridiculous and makes no sense, maybe I just didn't deliver it in the best format, or maybe it is something that it shouldn't be there at all, and we'll take it off the table. Or if I just completely forgot about something, I don't have all the answers yet. This is a work in progress, and we do work via the agile model where we don't have a specific final objective in mind for this. This is the journey is the destination, and this is part of the journey for us as well. And we're kind of fascinated with the possibility that this might bring to the table for things in our future as well. We're kind of excited about it. We've been wanting to do a lot of point-to-point stuff over the years, and previous to this, it just never seemed to make sense from a business model aspect because point-to-point does take up a lot of logistical bandwidth. Um, but we know people have a good time with it, and we want to help them have that good time. So I know this one was long and drawn out and a little rambly. Hopefully we planted some seeds. Hopefully some of the video that's been going in the background for folks that watched the YouTube version gave a taste of some of the adventure that you'll be able to see. And we definitely look forward to your thoughts and your feedback and your comments and your questions. Thank you very much for joining us on this very special edition of Spinistry Chat. Happy holidays, everyone.